So welcome back to part 2 of the Tiesto Oohla Oohla remake, and we're going to be doing the drops today. In the last video we made the verses and the builds, and this is exactly what we came up with. So the first sound we're going to cover is the bass line, and I've decided to use this preset here called Roses. So it's essentially Imanbek's bass signature sound, but it's the main character of this bass in this song, and this is the MIDI that we've got for it. Next up we're going to use this preset called Brasileiro alongside the Imanbek bass. And then to wrap up the bass we've got this final preset here called Often, which is again a really tight preset. And this is how all three of them sound together. Alright, so now we're going to dive into the processing, and this is the first thing on the chain. I've got some EQ just to kind of cut everything below 40 Hz, and then shaping things up as well a little bit. And then we've got some OTT to really sharpen up the whole sound and just bring out all the top end that we want in the sound. And then to follow that, I've got this plugin here called Voice Centric, which is such a good plugin if you want to normally process vocals, but for this instance I used it on the bass, and it does a really good job actually on like drums and bass lines and stuff. But we're using a little bit of the doubler effect, so you get kind of like a chorusy effect. And then I've got some reverb as well, just to add a bit of ambience to the whole sound. And then finally we're using the BX Digital, which as always is really good for just adding a bit of stereo width and keeping everything below 100 Hz in mono, because we've got some reverb and stuff going on the GW Voice Centric, so I didn't want to have any reverb below 100 Hz. And we're also widening the sides a bit so you get like a really crisp left and right bass. And then the final element is the Kickstart sidechain, which is actually quite different to normal on this song because we're using the normal chain, but we're shifting the waveform to the left. The result is that the sustained kind of tail of the bass sound jumps out a lot quicker. So I think this is what they've done by shifting the waveform. It allows you to kind of duck the sound a lot quicker, and then it stops ducking a lot sooner as well. So this is how it sounds all together with all of the effects. So next up I'm using this preset called Over the Reese, and this is simply just to add some ambience to the whole sound. But this is what it's doing, it's copying the chords from the whole verse section. Next up we're going to add some drums, and we've got the Car Music Vol.1 kick here, which is such a punchy kick. So right now the sidechain sounds a bit weird, but when it's in the mix and in context with the vocal, it just sounds a lot more like the original. We've then got this clap here from Car Music Vol.3. And then they've introduced these hi-hats instantly into the mix. And these are just closed hi-hats. I've then thrown in these subtle open hi-hats which come in on the second half of the drop. Again, it's a really subtle element, but you can just about make out that slightly longer sustain / decay in the hi-hat. So the next element we're going to look at are these quite cool impacts that we have coming in on the drops. And I've grabbed these from the Piano House Vol.1 pack, and I've pitched it all the way down just to give it a bit more of like a grainy kind of texture. And then we also have this impact here, which is giving you that A and B kind of effect between two different impacts. And then as you can see on the processing side, we've just cut all the lows because you don't really want that heavy low end in these impacts. So the final element is these reverse crashes, which go into normal crashes, and it just helps to really smoothen out the second half of the drop. So that's it for the entire production actually, and we're going to go and take a listen back now for the first time with the vocals so we get a much better idea of how close we got overall. Make sure you let us know down below how close you think this one was, and if you've got any other suggestions for videos, we'll be checking all of those out. But yeah, without any further ado, let's go and take a listen. When I see you dancing, I'm like, Oohla, Oohla, Oohla. When you move fancy, make me wanna